Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome back to the Loki discussion here on Three Buck Theater. I'm joined, as always, with my pal, Resonant Justice RJ. That episode, my God.
Bonkers episode, man. Absolutely insane. Easily my favorite out of the four.
Yeah, it was really good. I don't think it's going to be the overall, I think, honestly, episode 5 is probably going to be, the best one, or at least number 6, because that's got to wrap it all up. But this one, it set the stage for the last 2 episodes. It answered a lot of questions from the last episode, and I was right.
Yeah,
I was right.
Matt, how the hell did you call the fact that they were going to bone and be in love with each other? How the hell did you call that?
It's so easy. It's so easy in television. It wasn't like, look, you have a male lead and you have a female lead, and there is chemistry together, and they're talking about love. And then they're talking about their sexuality. They're talking about their hedonistic traits. They're literally dancing around the entire game of, ouch, ouch, you're on my hair, or just the tip. That's what they're doing. They're dancing around it the whole time. And honestly, who better to fall in love with themselves rather than Loki? How narcissistic is Loki? And that was a very interesting kind of take on. Now, I didn't think about the narcissism angle until it was brought up today in a few places. But just watching episode 3 and their dialogue and their conversation, I'm like, dude, this is exactly what's coming. This is the roadmap that's coming. And it's so weird to me how many people were still complaining about last week's episode, right? Like John Campia blocked me on Twitter because I told him point blank to his face that he was not paying attention if he thought that last week's episode was not good.
He also hid your reply, which I found to be hilarious.
Yeah, and was I mean in my reply? That wasn't a mean-spirited reply. I just said you weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Well, I think, did you call him a moron? No, he called you a moron, right?
He called me a moron, and he also deleted that tweet. So he called me a moron, and he deleted that tweet, and then he hid my response, and then he blocked me. Wow, right? Wow. What a bitch. But anyway, outside of John Campio, because that's what I'm going to start calling him now because he charges you $5 to even talk to him. So it's basically a cameo payment. So John Campio can go F off. The show was really good. The show was fantastic. And it really did set the stage for the end game, which I really liked, as well as that end credit scene, which was pretty amazing in and of itself.
Oh, dude, yeah. That end credit scene was that was like the cherry on top of the sundae,
It really was. And the thing is, I had to go to Twitter to find out about it because I was I wasn't expecting an end credit sequence. And I got to it a little bit late last night because I was having connectivity issues with my TV. So thankfully, I was on Twitter during the end credits and I saw people say, no, end credit scene, end credit scene, end credit scene. Like, okay, cool. And so what I really enjoyed, though, about the episode was, for one, we finally get a little bit of backstory about the relationship between the judge and Mobius. And I think I have a theory on that now.
Really?
I think okay, so now Mobius understands that he's a variant. We know that now, that Mobius understands that he's a variant. But I think Mobius has figured it out before. I think Mobius has absolutely figured it out before because the rings on the desk or the end table in the judge's office indicate multiple versions of Mobius. But I don't necessarily think it's multiple versions of Mobius as much as I think it's potentially when they pruned him, which, by the way, my jaw dropped at that last night.
Oh, dude, same. Because at that point we didn't know what pruning really was because we thought you get erased like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's been erased. I don't think he's been erased. I think he's been sent in for either reimagining, or not reimagining, but kind of reprogramming. Because I think that it's not that there's been multiple versions of Mobius. I think that he has figured it out multiple times, and they've had to prune him multiple times and then bring him back in.
Oh, so kind of like resetting him in a way.
Maybe, or finding some kind of, or pulling him out of an apocalyptic event, and or whatever the variant might be. I mean, I'm probably wrong on that. The whole concept of what makes a variant, as well as the Nexus stuff, I know they've explained it, but I don't think they've really explained it enough because I'm still kind of having trouble wrapping my brain around it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was gonna say when Loki got pruned at the very end, which my jaw hit the floor at that, especially because it came out of nowhere. They were having that tender moment. I'm like, oh shoot, he got pruned. But it seemed like he got. I mean, I'm taking this a little bit from the Grace Randolph breakdown, but it seems like he got sent to like a time junkyard where all the undesirables kind of go to. It's like the apocalypse, right? And it seems like it's that hellscape where like Avengers Tower was destroyed. I think it's more so they just like dump all of the useless assets, like all the useless stuff from different times, into this one location that's just a desolate area. So I don't know if Mobius got sent there with Loki, which is a possibility, or if, again, as you said, maybe he got reset. Like maybe like the pruning teleports you somewhere to a different timeline or a different area, you know?
Yeah, no, there's definitely that. But you know, here's the thing. At the same time, I am thinking that it would be okay if Mobius was dead.
Oh, no,
Because
no, no. I would hate that.
well, I'm not saying I would like it. I'm not saying at all that I would like it. I'm simply saying I would be okay with it. And the reason why I would be okay with it is, now granted, I want him to have a happy ending, so I just want to make that abundantly clear. However, Mobius at that moment in time knew the game was up, you know, and he answered the question that she was asking him as a deflection, because you could tell at this point she was fully aware of what's going on. She knows way more than she's letting on. And the possibility of her working with Kang, which is now, I think, more or less, I don't want to say confirmed, but it feels like it's a pretty big likelihood.
I'd say like 90%. Like I am guaranteeing at the end of the show we see Kang. There's just
Most
no way.
likely, yeah. It just feels like they're going that way, especially with the timekeepers being the androids now. But that could also be a shield reference of the, what was it, the
Life model decoys.
yeah, the life model decoys. It could be something along those lines. However, we'll get to that. So when they're talking in the office, and Mobius is trying to, you know, like, why can't I talk to Sylvie? Why, you know, you would normally let me talk to her. And then she immediately turned on that, I don't want it to impact you. I couldn't risk losing you or having you hurt. And she is simply playing up his emotions for her and doing it in a way that is, I mean, it was blatantly manipulative, and it was blatantly there. And I'm like, oh, you bitch, you know?
Yeah, she's a terrible liar, by the way. Mobius,
Terrible liar,
yeah.
but she's a great actress. I love her in the role. She plays it very well. But it's also like, but you can see what she's going for. And I also find that to be relatively refreshing in the performance, because it's not like it hits you. It's not like it's going to blindside you. You can really pick up on the fact that it's coming, and that's okay, because you start to see like, oh, well, wait, she's really in on this? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
and again, I love how the show gives you some answers, but it also leaves you more questions. Like, okay, we saw the timekeepers finally. Do they technically exist? Yes, but they are androids. And then it's like, okay, what happens if you get pruned? We kind of got an answer, but again, the bigger question remains: what really is the TVA? Who's really behind it? And what is its true purpose? Because it feels like everything about it is a lie.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it's like, you know, Loki, him telling the truth, and the truth causes chaos, but where lying is essential. So I think it works great with like a character like Loki is full of lies and trickery with a place like this, if that makes sense.
Very true. But going back to my earlier point, though, about Mobius having been a variant that's been reprogrammed multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
In the very first episode, when they're walking around, and Loki's talking about like overthrowing the place, and then, you know, Mobius goes, look, if you want to burn the place down, I'll help you. You can start with my desk. It was meant to be kind of a playful thing, but I think he kind of subconsciously knows, like the jet ski. I think he subconsciously knows something is amiss, and he hasn't been happy with it, but he likes the work that he does. So if we were going to find out anything about Mobius, I would assume he's probably like a detective from like the 1970s, is what I would think, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, the jet ski has to be a key moment in his life, or something, like some kind of memory that he's somewhat held on to, you know?
Yeah. Well, what I really loved was Hunter B-15, when we kind of see, because she's like asking about Hunter C-20, and the fact that C-20 is dead was, again, right away, you're like, wait, what? Like, why'd you kill her? That made no sense.
Yeah, Renslayer telling him that. It's like, why don't you just say, oh, she's injured, she's in the infirmary and is unconscious? Like, tell him straight up, oh, she's dead, don't worry about him. It's like, what?
Yeah, her brain deteriorated, it was terrible, but never said how she died or any of the information. And he never followed up on it, because, again, he trusts her implicitly because he loves her, right? Because ultimately the show is a love story, let's be fair. And he loves her. And so he doesn't, you know, he's going to believe her, and she's playing that to her advantage and basically kind of pushing him to not ask more questions. But then again, you know, this is Mobius. He's going to definitely ask more of those questions. And what I thought was really interesting about that was when we saw B-15, and you can see she's clearly rattled from what happened. She's clearly rattled from the Roxcart experience, the enchantment. And then when she goes and she breaks out Sylvie and takes her back to the apocalyptic moment so no time variant information can be tracked. And then she says, you know, like, she's like, well, how did you put that in my head? And like, no, those were actually there. And like, she shows her memories and she just like starts breaking down. Like that was her life. And I'm assuming there's probably children. I'm assuming that is probably something in there as well. So there's a lot that like, there's a lot of emotion in the episode. I thought the actress, I forget her name, who did Hunter B-15. She's been like one of my favorites throughout the show.
I think it's Wenwu Mosabu or something.
Okay. I'm terrible at pronouncing those names. I'm terrible. It's not on purpose. Too. I'm like, you know, but so I thought she was pretty great. And her little emotional arc there leading to kind of helping Sylvie get out and everything else I thought was pretty good. Because she, you know, she understands like, no, they're being played at this point. Yeah. Now she's got to do her job and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and it was super emotional too, where like Sylvie enchants her and she's like breaking down crying and she like snaps back into the reality they're currently in. And she's like, I looked happy. And you know, they just give each other that look, you know, it's like, yeah, you looked happy, you probably had a very happy life before you got robbed of it, basically.
Yeah. Well, then again, also, and then Sylvie raised a very interesting question when they were captured and they were taken to the guys, timekeepers, when she was asking the judge, she's like, what was my Nexus event?
Yeah. Why did you take me when I was a child? Like, what did I do wrong?
Exactly. And I think at that point, cause she's like, she pauses and then she just goes, and very coldly, I don't remember.
And that's the worst kind of answer because it's like they don't even care enough to even remember or tell her.
But
you know,
I think she absolutely remembers. She's just not going to tell her because I don't think that there was a Nexus event. Right?
Really?
I don't think so. There's something. There is something, and I don't quite know what it is just yet. But like I feel like what we're going to find out is there's going to be a different twist. Right. So if all the variants are all, you know, or I should say all the timekeepers and all the TVA employees, if they're all variants, they were taken from somewhere. They needed to be pruned from the sacred timeline in order to protect it. But we haven't really figured out how that technology works just yet. And I'm wondering if they also just take people to fill the ranks. And if they needed someone like Sylvie as a child that they could raise in order, because they knew she had powers and abilities. And here's the thing, if they were lying about the TVA and the variants and all that stuff, could they be lying about all the different variations of Loki? How do variants work? Where do variants come from? How does something cause them to leave the timeline? And what happens when you prune them or put them back? What happens? There's all these questions in regards to the sacred timeline and how it operates that very much leave a lot open for just interpretation as well as just outright like, wait, hold on, like this is not making any sense. And the more we get into the story, the less the sacred timeline makes sense. So it makes me wonder how much of it is just TVA propaganda telling everyone this is what they're doing, when in reality, they are going to just the different multiverses and they're just taking what they want while protecting or while working within one. I don't know, because, and maybe someone who watches this will have a better understanding and could better fill me in, because I am trying to understand it. But one thing that I thought was really fascinating as well was when at the beginning of the episode, when faced with imminent death and Loki and Sylvie are there on Lamentis and they hold hands.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what caused the branch from the sacred timeline that was so powerful and almost instantly caused the Nexus event.
Yeah, Mobius later in the episode is like, you know, a Loki falling in love with another Loki. That's pure chaos, right?
Yeah. Oh, and and I guess that would probably cause it.
Well, I thought that was a great scene, by the way, because Sylvie's like, is it just the destiny of every Loki to just miserably fail, you know?
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really powerful scene where it's like, where Tom Hiddleston, because Tom Hiddleston was great in this episode, by the way. Like, his acting was like top notch, you know? A lot of his facial reactions, a lot of his, you know, emoting. I guess, for lack of a better word, in this episode is fantastic.
Yeah, I find that to be really interesting. I know the acting was great on everyone's part. I think Owen Wilson did a great job, especially when they had like you could tell he was like legitimately hurt that Loki had went with Sylvie, and he was legitimately upset that like he felt backstabbed by a friend, which he also probably knew was going to happen because they'd also had that conversation right before going off and being in that place. But what I thought was great though about that was like Loki felt his pain. He did. He felt his pain, but it did take the time loop punishment with Sif, which that was really funny.
Yeah, I'd love seeing Jamie Alexander come back, by the way. That was great.
Mean, just for that brief little thing, they brought her back for that. And then she's also in Thor Love and Thunder, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yep.
So, I mean, clearly this is a reintroduction to her character that we haven't seen since Thor The Dark World back in 2013. Although she did pop up, I think, in a couple episodes of the earlier seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She did.
Yeah, I think it was either season 1 or season 2.
Well, I think it was, I know definitely season 1. And then she went on to go do that show Blind Spot over on NBC for like 6 seasons.
Which is a great show, by the way. It's actually
I never watched I watched the first couple episodes and I thought it was all right. But again, network television and me don't necessarily mix these days. But it was good understandable. It was good seeing her. And what I like though is that like it wasn't just a robotic programming. That like Loki was trying to, he was trying to talk with her, and then he had that realization. And he's like, I'm sorry. I just don't want to be alone. I like attention. And then she, hoists him up and she's still like, but you will always be alone.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of the Dormammu versus Doctor Strange thing in that movie, where it's like Dormammu, I've come to bargain, it just keeps looping and looping and looping until Dormammu breaks and says, all right, I'm done. He just goes away. But I love that. It kind of like a callback to that. But again, it was interesting how it was also this emotional thing too, where it's like Loki had to admit something about himself that he never had before,
Yeah, he had to come to terms with that particular part of his psyche, which I really enjoyed. Because look, even Michael Waldron, the showrunner and the head writer, when talking about, there's an article over on Marvel.com that says Loki inside the decision to have him fall in love with another version of himself.
Yeah, and that got posted immediately after the episode. They wanted people to read this.
They wanted people to know about it because there's a lot of people that are going to look at this like, is this just a form of incest? What the hell is going on?
Yeah, some people are very upset by this. Like, well, I thought Loki was bisexual. Why can't he get with a guy? It's like, he's a narcissist. He's going to fall in love with himself. I think whether Sylvie was a dude or a guy, they would have shared that connection. So,
Yeah, well, what he says here is that in the show, it's ultimately a series that's about self-love, self-reflection, and forgiving yourself. It just felt right that it would be Loki's first real love story to fall in love with himself, because he does have a lot of self-hatred. He definitely is a narcissist. He definitely is a sociopath. He's definitely all of these things. But then again, he was a frost giant that was taken from his family, raised by Odin, who loved him, but he never really felt part of the family. And that was always something that stuck with him. He had a chip on his shoulder. He's a god of mischief. All of these things and all of these ideas that people have put onto him, all these labels that people have thrown at him. And after a while, he just started embracing those things, because he just never really felt fully accepted. And so, but then again, look, this is Loki 2012 Loki, right? So as the series progressed up until Infinity War, we did see Loki change, and we did see Loki, in Thor: The Dark World as well as Thor: Ragnarok. We got an arc for Loki that culminated with Infinity War with him dying, and that was him realizing that he had family. That was him realizing that he had a brother who loved him, and that he could be a better person, and that even though he is a dick, he still has that ability. And this is him kind of relearning all that, but it's again just kind of in a variation of it. So, and then coming to terms with that, as well as realizing that he's in love with himself. But here's my question though: did him and Sif, did that imply that they had a relationship?
That's a good question, because I know that the whole Loki cutting off Sif's hair, that's actually part of Norse mythology. It actually is a Norse tale of Loki. It's actually in the comics recently too, where it's like Loki cut off Sif's hair, but it was golden and stuff. And it's like, magical. Norse myths are very silly and over the top, but I don't know. That does raise a good question because I know in the comics they always try pushing Sith and Thor as a relationship. Like caught between two worlds, between like a love triangle between Thor, Jane, and Sith.
Yeah.
Loki would be interesting. That actually, I would actually very much like to see that. Actually, like if Loki like had romance in the past that didn't work out, to like see that in a way. To see like why Sylvie is like his first connection,
Yeah, they kind of hinted at it though with the conversation on the train in episode 3 when they're talking about like when Sylvie's like, "Well, you're a prince. I'm pretty sure there's been princesses or maybe other princes," and so he's like, "Yeah, well, yeah." So it's, I mean, clearly
he's both.
A bit of both. He's done his thing, and so obviously it would make a lot of sense to kind of have him, be a bit like Thor, where he would find himself in these kind of very just surface level relationships, but never finding the connection that he wants. And here he's finding it with a female version of himself, which we still don't even know if she is a female Loki. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that, was again another twist down the road where we find out that she's not him, because then you get into some weird like flipper baby situations down the road. And I mean, obviously someone's going to die. It's, I don't think they're going to live happily ever after. I just don't see that happening, which is unfortunate because you want to see it at this point. I think Mobius will get to go back to his time and he'll get his jet ski. I mean, if he's not 100% dead, I think that's what's going to happen. But what I thought was really cool was, all the stuff with Lady Sif was great. But when Loki was talking up Sylvie, like how awesome she was, how amazing she was for almost single-handedly taking down the TVA and all that stuff. And it's like, and then Mobius like, wait a minute, like her. Like that was kind of a funny little revelation because, Loki didn't want to admit it to himself just yet. And so he kind of had to be like, oh, no. What?
And that's why Mobius and Loki have such a great dynamic, because Mobius can tell things about Loki that Loki himself doesn't want to admit or realize yet either.
Yeah, but the audience could easily see that at the beginning of the episode and they start holding hands. And then it's like, wait a minute, there they are. We detected him now, So I guess then the question becomes, so what about, in the finale, because we've kind of been all over the place on this. In the finale, there's, a lot of questions now that are asked. Obviously, it's who are the timekeepers, who are controlling the timekeepers? What does the judge know? And what is she going to tell Sylvie? And and obviously there's Kid Loki, there's Old Man Loki, and then who's the other variant? Who is that guy?
I don't know, but that was amazing. Seeing Richard E. Grant in the classic 60s comics Loki costume. And he looks like a boss. Like, I never thought they could make that costume work in live action without looking goofy. It still looks goofy, but, Richard E. Grant's rocking it. Like, he looks like he's having a blast. Like, just his face, his presence feels awesome. Yeah, not only that, don't forget they got Alligator Loki. The gator is a Loki variant, too.
Oh, really?
The kid Loki's holding, he has the Loki horns.
I didn't even, I saw that variant. So quick. I have to go and find a screenshot of that. So he's clearly going to where all the other Loki variants have gone, and that's going to be interesting. Is it? And that
and the third variant Loki, by the way, he has like a hammer, like a Thor type hammer, that's mechanized. It's like really interesting.
Now, so I wonder if that's going to tie into whatever that bit we saw in the trailer was with like the vote Loki. Like what is that going to tie into? Because I have a feeling what I kind of get out of that is like there's going to be a bit of a time jump maybe. Where it's like he's kind of reverted back to a little bit of his older ways, and he is, persuaded and manipulated and connived himself to being the front runner because he's got the crown with the horns, the bigger horns at that point. Now, who knows? Could that belong to anyone else? He killed another variant and took the horn. Who knows? I don't know, but like because he was with like the Hungarian guys in that little shot.
All right.
I have no idea. I've been looking on Reddit trying to see if people are trying to hypothesize about that. But quite frankly, most people have been wrong about everything. Yeah. So just like WandaVision, everyone's basically been wrong about everything.
Yeah.
So we have no idea.
No more Mephisto theories, please. No more.
Oh, I've still seen the Mephisto theories going out. I've still seen people talking about that.
The only thing I worry about is the Kang theories becoming the new Mephisto. It's like Kang's going to show up, Kang's going to be here, and then he's not, and then people are all like, this sucks,
Kang would be a lot more, would definitely be a lot more interesting to see overall, I think.
No, I agree.
And I think that you're going to get more, I think, like, because as we said at the beginning of this, it does feel like Kang is basically just like, it's like that's kind of hinted
There
at. Like
has
very,
to be someone at the top, and if it's not King, I'd be very surprised.
I don't know who else it would be.
The only one I could think of is what's his name, Mortis, the Immortal, or something.
Yeah,
But yeah,
maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's such a weird, world because they have so many things to pull from, and we don't know yet where they're going to go. But I'll tell you this: what should have been a key giveaway about the Timekeepers was Marvel released the Timekeepers promo poster.
that's right. The statues, yeah,
The statues. So if they release one during this weekend or whatever, then we know that we're going to see something else. So if all of a sudden there's like a new one or something, no, well, if it's a big reveal, they're going to want to wait till the end, obviously.
yeah.
But yeah,
Was it just me, or did it seem like the reveal of those 3 Lokis in a way make you go, now I understand why there's going to be a second season? Because I feel like there's so much more the show can explore at this point that it's just like, I need more of this, you know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the show is done very well, so they're clearly going to want to either. I don't know if it's going to be called Loki or if it's going to be called something else.
Just add an S, Lokis.
Loki's, yeah, there we go. The James Cameron edition. That's what's going to happen. Uh, but no, I do agree with you. I do feel that there's a lot here that we don't know that I don't think they're going to really be able to summarize all of in approximately 6 episodes or 2 more episodes. I just don't necessarily see that happening. But at the same time, they've also given us enough to go on story-wise that I think we'll be satisfied with the ending of it until we get to see him again. Because there's no way that they're done. I mean, even Sophia DiMartino has said, like, well, I would love to play Sylvie again. It's like, yeah, you're going to play Sylvie again. I just don't, unless she dies. And even then they could resurrect her.
You're in the long haul when you join the MCU.
Yeah. There's really no way of getting out of it. Cause and I was talking with somebody about this the other day about how the MCU, they plan all this stuff out. I think I was on my live stream. They plan all of this stuff out years in advance. And even going as far back as Kevin Feige trying to get a Wolverine cameo in Spider-Man 2 because they were both filming in New York at the same time. And so, he was an exec producer on Spider-Man 2 and an associate producer on X-Men, and he was friends with Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman confirmed that in an interview back in 2013. And it goes to show you that Kevin Feige has been trying a very long time to make all of this stuff connected in one way or another. And now he's in control. They signed, like, they're, famously, like Sam Jackson, nine picture deal with Marvel, right? I think Bucky Barnes, I think Sebastian Stan was like a 9-picture deal with him too. These contracts go on for a long period of time. And actors keep coming back.
Yeah, they like working under Marvel. I think it's very comfortable for them.
Well, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of
the
exposure.
money too, obviously.
Well, and the thing is, I think at the end of it, there's probably a lot of people that really just, they like the whole experience, so they want to come back. So, I mean, now going forward, because I think we kind of talked most of the episode to death at this point. What do you think is going to happen next week? Because obviously the Mobius pruning, the Loki pruning, the finding out that he's not dead, that he's someplace else. I mean, now the door is wide open, and that's going to be wild.
I think what you're going to see is we're gonna know what pruning actually is. We're going to figure out what this area is. I actually have a theory. I think if there's a bunch of different Lokis here, that there potentially there could be like different variations of like multiple heroes. Like you could see like 3 or 4 different variations of Thor, for example, or 3 to 5 different versions of Captain America. I don't know if they'll go that far. They might hint at it, but I would really like to see that.
I mean, look, the show has got like a massive, massive, massive budget, and if they start showing variations of other heroes, what that's going to lead to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be like, so is this confirming that that Chris Evans is coming back? Because there's those rumors that were circulating around pretty heavily a few months ago.
And remember, they don't have to look like Chris Evans either. It can still be Captain America, just a different variation that doesn't look like Chris Evans too.
Yeah.
So
same thing with Tony Stark. We could maybe finally get John Hamm as Tony Stark. And John Hamm would probably be willing to do it too down the road. Because he does play. Because the thing is, John Hamm does play Tony Stark in the MODOK animated show.
Yeah, or Tom Cruise is Tony Stark. You know, there's been that rumor since like 2008 before they even cast
I
RDJ.
have a thing that would happen in like Secret Wars or something.
Yeah,
right?
So like, what happened in a movie, not a TV show?
Oh yeah, there's no way they could get that Tom Cruise would ever lower himself, and I'm air quoting that, lower himself to doing this for a TV show, regardless of a $25 million per episode budget or not. He would not do it. I just don't see that happening. But on a movie, 100%. I think he would 100% do it. And I think give it a couple years and fans will be okay. You know, but I mean, obviously, the multiverse aspect, I think, is what we're going to see a lot of in the next episode. I wouldn't be surprised if that Doctor Strange 2 cameo that was supposed to happen in WandaVision doesn't happen here, because this is obviously going to tie into Spider-Man No Way Home. So what if there's multiple versions of Spider-Man?
Dude, that'd be amazing.
What if and again, I don't think we're going to see anything involving Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. However, a few months ago, while they were filming No Way Home in Georgia, which, by the way, is where they filmed this show, there was an Uber driver that had said that he had delivered food to Andrew Garfield at a hotel in Atlanta, not far from the studio.
Wait. An Uber driver, was that you, Matt?
No, that's not me. I'm in Washington. I only deliver to politicians and prostitutes. Let's get it right. And they tip well. Anyway, so that was a story that came out that a lot of people were talking about as it now being confirmed. And there's a bunch of scoopers that have talked about Andrew Garfield and Tobey being in No Way Home confirmed. But if they're filming Loki and they're filming No Way Home around the same time, I mean, wouldn't it be hard to shoot an insert that they could drop into Loki down the road? So it's kind of like, I don't know what this next week's going to bring, but Tom Hiddleston did say that episodes 4 and 5 took the show in a direction that he did not see coming. And obviously him being in love with himself is one of those directions. And I'm sure the variants are the second.
So quick question before we end this. Michael Waldron's, as we're almost at the end of the show. Has this made you even more excited for Michael Waldron's work on Doctor Strange 2 and his upcoming Star Wars movie?
Oh, yeah.
Because according to Kevin Feige and him, it seems like Michael Waldron went in and completely changed the script for Doctor Strange 2, which probably explains why Scott Derrickson left and why there's so much changes going on with that movie. Like, it's completely transformed for its initial conception.
Well, its initial conception was meant to be a horror film, and then that was what Scott Derrickson wanted to do, and I think they were going to get C. Michael Cargill to co-write it, because he also did that with the first one, and they wanted to go more horror. And this was first announced when, like in 2019. Loki, we knew that the shows were coming. I think that the conflict between Scott Derrickson and Kevin Feige over the direction was definitely influenced by what they were trying to do for Loki, as well as like WandaVision and building all of that up. And they wanted to connect it to those shows.
I think Waldron knows how to connect these things maybe a little better.
Maybe.
I think maybe the initial conception, Doctor Strange 2 was probably more of a horror movie and less of a multiverse thriller that connects everything.
But then at the same time, he only rewrote the script once Sam Raimi came on board. So that was when they reworked it from scratch, is once Sam Raimi came on board. And that to me is pretty cool, because I'm like, look, you're working with Sam Raimi, and I mean, we might get some pretty heavy, references to Spider-Man, at least the Raimi verse. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some Evil Dead references in the movie.
Oh yeah. If Bruce Campbell's not in it, I would be surprised.
Oh no, Bruce Campbell flat out in the movie. I guarantee you, Bruce Campbell. He posted on Twitter not too long ago, a sunrise shot from London.
Oh yeah. Okay. He's in it. Yeah.
And then it's like, because Bruce Campbell owns a farm in Southern Oregon. In Medford, Oregon, Bruce Campbell owns a farm. He's a farmer. So if he's flying to London for something during a pandemic, it's pretty much only going to be for his buddy Sam.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, Bruce Campbell in an official Marvel movie is going to be, or I should say, a Marvel Studios movie is going to be pretty badass. I can't wait for that. I'm hyped for Doctor Strange, not only for the directing talent, but for the screenwriter and the potential connectivity and all the craziness that's going to come down the pipeline.
Yeah. I think overall, based on this show, I think the MCU is a strong contender for a writer that should be on a lot of different projects for them. Like, because they used to have like a writer, God, whose name? They had Christopher Yost work on a lot of Marvel stuff during Phase One. I think Michael Waldron could become your Phase Four and beyond writer for a lot of different projects.
Yeah, I think mostly at this point, what we're going to see is a lot of that. A lot of it's kind of like the guys who did the Avengers Endgame and Infinity War scripts. I think
Yeah, because
also
they
did Captain Marvel, or sorry, Captain America: Civil War, and
and Winter Soldier, I think.
yeah, and they had like so they had their stories they wanted to tell, but I'm pretty sure they had a lot of input with the other people for like the connectivity part of it. Again, look, we'll kind of wrap it up after this, but Marvel is a very well-oiled machine. This is very known. It's a well-oiled machine. They plot everything out in advance. They have a plan. The talent loves them. They put out consistently good content. I mean, even people who are like skeptical of like Marvel going to Disney Plus have come out and said Loki is like one of the best things I've ever seen on television. They love the mystery. They love the design, the music. I mean, even WandaVision blew up the internet. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would argue at this point, is probably like the weakest entry in these three shows. It's not bad, but it's like the weakest. But going forward, now that they've got a solid formula and they can tie it into the MCU, things are going to be very fascinating.
No, I absolutely agree. And don't believe the rumors that this show's flopping, by the way, or that it's getting too woke so people stop watching after episode 3. It's all bullcrap. Never listen to those people.
Yeah.
I think the show's getting better and better, honestly.
More people are going to love it, and then they're going to want more. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get a Loki 2 announcement or season 2 announcement very soon.
I think the week that the finale drops, they'll announce season 2.
I mean, they've hinted at it and they've kind of talked about it, but I don't think it's gotten a full on confirmation. But I'd love to see a buddy cop show with Mobius and Loki. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So we are at like the 6-minute mark.
It was a big episode, man. A lot to talk about.
A lot going on in it, yeah, and a lot of ramifications for the MCU at large. And I think even next week we're going to have a lot more information to kind of dive into. But real quick, so your final thoughts on the episode? Where would you rank it?
Personally, this is my favorite out of the 4. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It was nonstop, big reveals and big moments and big character growth. I know a lot of people didn't jive with the 3rd episode, and we talked about that. Don't be a John Campion, call other people morons, but you're entitled to think how you think about that. But I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I think next week is probably going to be even better because you got Kid Loki with a hammer, and Richard E. Grant's classic 1960s comic book Loki. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, I think we're going to see something that's going to be truly amazing next week, and a lot of people are going to be very happy with it. I'm going to be very happy with it, and I mean, I don't know, like we might have to go live after the finale to talk about it, just because I'm actually getting yelled at by people like, "Why didn't you do this live?" And like, because it's late and I have to go to bed. Like.
Well, shoot, if you want to do these things live, I will happily join you, man.
It is. It's late for me. That's the problem. But I'm hoping that definitely for we'll do it for the finale 100%, because I'll just take a nap earlier in the evening and make sure I'm awake. It's going to be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, as always, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. I understand this is a longer episode. If you made it this far, type Loki into the chat so that way RJ and I know that you slog through our discussion, whether you like it or not, and you made it here. And we'll talk to you guys next week for another breakdown of Loki. I'll see you guys later. Have a great one, and peace out.